Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling a challenge that, let's be honest, every single language teacher faces. How do you plan a listening lesson that actually works? We're going to break down how to take your learners from that initial overwhelming feeling of confusion all the way to total clarity. Okay, here's our game plan. First, we're going to nail down what the real listening challenge is for our students. Then, we'll look at all the complex skills working just beneath the surface. After that, I'm going to walk you through a really powerful 6-stage lesson sequence. We'll get into the theory, the why behind it all, and then wrap things up with a practical blueprint that you can start using immediately. All right, first things first, let's talk about a super common and frankly frustrating issue. Why is listening so incredibly hard, even for students who have a pretty good handle on grammar and vocabulary? Sound familiar? I bet it does. It's that heart-sinking moment of shock when a student realizes that knowing a word in a textbook is a completely different world from actually catching it in the middle of a fast, fluent conversation. And this, right here, tells us something absolutely crucial about how we need to teach listening. So, here's the big shift in thinking we need to make. A truly effective listening lesson is not just a vocabulary quiz in disguise. Nope. The real goal here is to give our learners the tools they need to process speech as it's happening, to recognize the language they already know, and to make really smart, educated guesses to fill in any blanks. So what is actually going on in a learner's brain when they're trying to listen? Well, it is so much more than just hearing a bunch of words. Let's peel back the curtain and look at the incredible skills all working together just below the surface. First off, there's the raw mechanical processing. They have to hear distinct sounds, figure out where one word stops and the next one starts, which is not easy, and then use the music of the language, the prosody, things like intonation and stress, to figure out the speaker's attitude or feelings. Next up, they basically have to become detectives. They're constantly using their background knowledge of the world to predict what might come next, and they're using all the clues around an unfamiliar word to make a solid guess about its meaning. This is how they learn to navigate those moments of not knowing without just giving up. And finally, let's not forget that most listening happens in a conversation, right? It's a two-way street, so learners need those interactive skills. This means giving those little signals like uh-huh or I see to show they're following along, and crucially, knowing how to jump in and ask for clarification when they're lost. Okay, so we know what skills our students need to build, but the million-dollar question is, how do we actually teach them? Well, this brings us to the real core of our explainer today, a clear, 6-stage sequence that is designed to build deep, lasting comprehension. And here it is, the whole thing at a glance. Just look at how beautifully this flows. We start by getting them warmed up in the pre-listening stage. Then we go for the big picture, the gist. After that, we zoom in on the details. And finally, we step back and reflect on both the content and the language itself. It's a complete journey. My absolute favorite way to think about this is the onion metaphor. A listening text isn't just one solid, scary block of sound. It's layered. And with each stage in our sequence, we're helping our students peel back one more layer, getting them closer and closer to that core of understanding. So why are we peeling this onion? What's the end game? Well, it's this fantastic idea that one writer called zero uncertainty. That's the goal. It's that amazing aha moment when a learner feels a complete and, most importantly, a confident understanding of what they just heard. It really shows you the power of this structured approach. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this sequence looks good, but what's the theory behind it? Why does it work so well? Well, it all boils down to two really smart concepts, and you can see them right here, TAVI and TALO. This is such a great way to think about how we can use a text. On the one side, you've got TAVI. That's just a simple way of saying we're focused on the message. What's the story here? What information is being shared? But on the other side, you've got TALO. This is when we put on our linguist hats and put the language itself, the grammar, the vocabulary, the sentence structure, under the microscope. And here's where it all clicks into place. The real genius of that 6-stage sequence is that it creates this perfectly natural flow from TAVI to TALO. We make absolutely sure that learners understand the meaning first before we ever ask them to start analyzing the nuts and bolts of the language used to deliver that meaning. It's a meaning-first approach, and it works wonders. So what? Why does this all matter? Why go to all the trouble of having 6 stages instead of just, hitting play on a recording and asking a few questions? Well, the benefits are huge. When you use this layered approach, you prevent that shallow, surface-level listening that just leaves students more confused than when they started. Instead, you're encouraging them to listen again and again, each time with a new, clear purpose. It creates this perfect balance between what did it mean and how did they say it, and ultimately builds skills that actually work out in the real world. All right, let's bring it all home and build your own listening lesson blueprint. Here are some of the most important, practical tips to keep in mind as you're planning your next class. Okay, here's your checklist. First, always remember the onion. Peel those layers one by one. Second, try to resist that temptation to pre-teach every single new word. Just focus on the absolute essentials that block comprehension. Third, make sure you build in time for students to listen again and compare their answers with a partner. That's so important. And remember, the transcript is your secret weapon for that final stage of clarification, not a crutch to use from the beginning. And of course, the golden rule. Adapt this whole structure to fit your students and your context. So, there you have it, the whole picture. You've got the 6-stage sequence giving you the how-to, and that TAVI flow giving you the why. You put them together, and you get this incredibly powerful yet flexible framework for building listening skills that are tough enough for the real world. So I'll just leave you with this final thought to take into your next lesson. By thinking in layers, by guiding your students step by step from the big picture to the tiny details, from meaning to form, how are you going to peel that onion and lead them toward that incredible feeling of zero uncertainty?